when I saw those guys in the Ed Sullivan Show, it was about 6 months after the Beatles arrived. And I liked the Beatles, but when I saw the Stones, that was the day I knew that was it. I was going to do this for a living, and I've been a Stones fan ever since. As a matter of fact, in 1986, I had a band called Phantom Rocker and Slick, and Keith came and played the track for us. Awesome. All I did was ask him. I said, Keith, we're mixing the record. I met him at a party because I'd done Dancing in the Streets, the guitars on that duet that he did with Jagger and Bowie. And we were at a function later on, and I saw Keith, and I just asked him, and he said, sure. Just tell me where I need to go and when to show up. Showed up 5 days later, but he showed up. Everything about Keith, musically, fashion-wise, his attitude, it just rang a bell with me right from day one. I can't tell you why, it just did. And it still does today. I mean, whenever I want to get inspired, when I do shows, I always, before the show, I mean, I stick a Stones DVD in my computer and I watch the whole thing before I go on stage. I still do that.
Mick Jagger is the most unique singer that I ever seen. Because his movements, is the way he say things. When he say things, he says things like he brings so much life to what he sings, and I think he's one of the greatest lead frontmen of all time, if not the greatest. First, I saw this group, the Beatles. I saw this group, the Beatles, on the Ed Sullivan Show as a kid, and then all of a sudden, this group called the Rolling Stones. And I thought the Beatles were like super cool, but these guys seemed like, to me, man, they was like the bad boys. And something about that, being a teenager, I could identify, because they was raw, man, and it was electrifying. And the way Mick Jagger was moving, it was like they was unrestricted. It seemed like the Beatles had boundaries, but the Rolling Stone had no boundaries, and that's the way I felt. I felt like they was totally unrestricted, and still is. I still feel that way.
It's phenomenal up there. I mean, Steve Jordan and Waddy Wachtel and Nils Lofgren and Bobby Keys and Willie Weeks, and I mean, it just goes on and on. It's and Ian McLagan, and I'm many of my lifelong idols are up there, and just rehearsing for it was, pretty amazing. Turning around and like, golly, I'm what am I doing here?
Well, I mean, the funniest story that I can tell right off the top is that Steve Jordan called me to do this gig, and he said, hey, don't you have one of those Telecasters from, Keith used to play a Telecaster from 1978. And I said, yes, I do have one of those, Steve. And he goes, well, you think you could bring that? And I said, well, Steve, you know why I got that guitar? Is because when I was in high school, I had a picture of Keith Richards on my folder, and he had that guitar. So it all just kind of seemed so cute and charming and real all at the same time. So that already seemed like some sort of manifest destiny or something like that. But I think all through my life, I've been a Rolling Stones fan from, I probably heard Satisfaction on the radio when I was a real little kid, and just got more and more into them and started going and seeing shows, and just became, one of those people that has all their records and knows everything about them, and finally ended up opening for Keith in the Expensive Winos, and that was a thrill. I mean, just opening for Keith every night was an experience that I just can't compare it to anything. I watched the headlining band every night, which I'd never done, and Steve was in the band, and that's kind of my connection. And when Steve called me, I was just like, yes, I got it. I'm just looking forward to hearing everybody else interpret the songs, and that's the funnest thing about these things is I did a Alex Chilton thing over the summer at Jazz Fest, and you really sort of dig into the artist's material in a different way when you have to play it. You notice details that even though you've heard something 1,000 times before, when you have to play it, you really have to to get inside the song and you start hearing all these nuances that you never noticed before, and it really does tell you a lot about the person who wrote the song and about the person who's playing it. And particularly for this, I'm playing in a Keith Richards tuning, and I always wanted to play in Keith Richards tuning, but I never really had a reason. But I knew that someday I would be forced. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to go, you know what, you can't get out of it this time, and it's really fun. So I guess that's what I'm looking forward to most is playing in his tuning, playing his song in his tuning, and pulling it off. I'll be thrilled if I can just manage to look slightly like I know what I'm doing, you know.
Their grooves are pretty much organic. Mick is a beast on the harmonica still. It's about being true. The Rolling Stones have always been true and paid homage to where they came from. I mean, to name their group after Muddy Waters record is, you know, a bold statement. And for a magazine to be named after them, no, just kidding. Satisfaction. I was 4 years old when it came out. So many people have covered it. Simultaneously in my household, when it first came out, Otis Redding covered it not too long afterwards, and both of them played simultaneously in the crib. So, yeah, I go back that far. So that, Start Me Up, I mean, says it all. Let's get it going. Jumpin' Jack Flash. Those are three of my favorite Rolling Stone records.